pathways. What I've realized is if you speak about pathways, technical, then there's a lot that you can speak about. If you want to discuss the whole technical design, it will take longer than a day. But I've decided to focus on the main parts that we use during support, during development on pathways. So, and delve a bit deeper. So we might not finish with everything that I've prepared for today, but let's see how far we go. On the agenda, we'll look at the table structure. We're going to look at three things: the table structure, the pathway step user controls, and the target audience and portal hash, which actually determines who can see what. Okay, there's an ongoing support query from Discovery on this as well. It has to do with the target audience and portal hash. So first of all, the table structure. There is a diagram on signature. So I'm going to spend a bit of time on this. So the central table is PW nodes, pathway nodes. So we have abbreviation for the module PW and nodes. So this actually stores the node details. We have PW node relationships. That stores the relationships between nodes. Let's just have a look at that one. There is something that is worth mentioning. So PW nodes. Let's just select in a grid. Have your name, you have the short description. Your header. These are all specifically to a pathway or category. What the program or unit standard is that the pathway links to, or the category links to. The type. So the type can be the topmost node. I think the topmost node's type is 6. Okay, so this is the schema node. Then you have type 3 and 4, which is categories and pathways. Okay, so you have an invisible node that is not seen from the front end, and that acts as the parent node for the top level pathway nodes. Okay, that is type 6. You have the publish status, which can be published or not published, published to the schema, display order, show on portal, everything that we've shown from the front end. Learning store fields, there is something that I want to get to, and that is the following, and that is the parent node. Unlike the organization structure, the parent ID is not saved as part of PW nodes. It's saved in PW relationships. Because you might be asking, oh, why is that? Because a pathway can link to more than one category. You can actually link a whole pathway to a different category. Relationships. So the node, you have the node and the parent node ID, and you have the relationship type. Either direct linked 1 or 2 means it is reused at a different point. So what does that actually mean? It means a node can have more than one parent. A child node can have more than one parent. Okay. Does that make sense, Harvey?
Yes.
So you can have something like this. Here's your top node. And this is your schema node. This is node 1, node 2, node 3, node 4. There's also node 4. And node 4 is a, let's say it's a pathway. Okay. But the same pathway can be placed in different or reused in a different part of the pathway tree structure. Okay. That's node relationships. The steps. So the steps table is a table that needs some explaining. Remember that different steps are different types of steps. So there might be an acceptance step or an online assessment step or a SCORM X API step. Okay. So the 2 columns or 3 columns actually is most important is what node it is linked to, what pathway, what is the step type. The step type, there's an enum in the system that explains what each of the numbers actually mean. So each one is a step on its own. And in that steps library table, what is the ID? So let's take 20. 20 is SCORM X API. And the step item ID is 2. It means in PW SCORM ID 2, that is a SCORM step that you're linking to. Does it make sense? So let's use 20. I'm going to use, so 20 is SCORM X API. All right, number 2 means this is actually, it's a listening. But now let's look at the front end. Oh, sorry, let's look at the data. And 20, number 2, creating context for listening is the step header. But that 20 means it's SCORM, so you select from the SCORM library, PW SCORM, and ID 2 is listening part 1. Okay. So each of the tables, but I'll show that in a table diagram. They are in the table diagram. We have the pathway steps, PW SCORM, PW practical assessments. So each of these are a step type, a specific step type. And that is the link between PW steps and the step type tables. Okay. Step prerequisites. If you can remember from the last session, the prerequisites are other steps in the same pathway that must be completed before the current step can be started. Prerequisites. Okay, so employee node logs. What is PW employee node logs? Every time an employee opens a pathway, goes into a pathway, we write a log entry. So we want to know when you access a pathway, when you open a pathway. Okay, employee favorites, you've seen that on the LMS portal. So node ID is stored there. Employee node progress. I said there's 2 different terminologies that are used in pathways, nodes and steps. Nodes refer to the physical nodes, the pathways or category, and steps, the steps within a node. Okay, so if PW employee node progress. That shows you your progress within that node, within that pathway, for instance. So if employee ID node ID, you have the completed steps count. Okay. Is there a connector available? Completed steps total count. What is the difference between the two? Completed steps total count is the total count of nodes within that pathway, which might change over time for different employees completing the pathway. Okay, so you have completed 2 out of 3. That's where the progress indicator on the front end comes from. It shows the percentage, 66%. Okay. Then you'll see there's also a PW employee. I'll see it now, step progress, which shows your progress within a step. And that stores the following. It stores the status of that step for the employee. So if I attempt SCORM, but I don't complete it, it will say attempted. If I complete it, it will say completed if it's not an assessment. If I complete it and I pass it, it will say passed, because I've passed that the SCORM was actually an assessment. Remember, e-learning content does not always have to be an assessment. Okay. Clients use it that way, mostly, but it doesn't have to be. It can only be learning material. Okay, so you have a step ID, and then you have a step type status. So step type status is the master data table for status per step, per schema. So per schema, per SCORM, the statuses for that specific step type. So if we refer to a step type, it's just obviously the type of the step, whether it's SCORM, online assessment. There's also an indicator if it's in testing mode. When does it say in testing mode 1, Gert? Do you remember?
Oh, in testing mode 1 is when you're basically the admin. It's that toggle you see when you're on the pathway.
Yeah. So you're the admin, so it's in edit mode, right?
Yes, in edit mode, yeah.
Okay. Is completed is a generic field that tells you whether that step is completed. Now, for each step type, let's say for a classroom event, there are statuses attended, not attended, no show. Attended would be marked as a status that is you completed the step. A no show, you didn't pitch for the event, so the step can't be completed for you because you didn't attend the event. For a document, downloaded may be a completed status, and not downloaded means you haven't completed the step. Okay. For SCORM, content passed and completed may be both completion statuses. Let us show something on the front end. It's not a table that we view regularly or master data, but it is there, and it's important to know it is there if you want to understand pathways. The step type configuration. So the table that I'm going to show is this one. Step type. Step type, is it even? I think it's because it's one of the admin table. Oh, here it is. Step type configurations. Step type configurations. Okay. If you're a learning administrator, you are able to see this, and clients are allowed to change this. Okay, learning management. I think it's under master data. Step type. This is a step type, yes. Okay, so this is the acceptance step. Do that plan. So indicates whether you can add this as a do that plan item. Okay, so do that plan, we won't go into detail today. Let's take online assessment details. Okay, this is the status details. So there's 3 statuses: not completed, failed, or passed. Okay. The progress status, if you look at that, the progress status tells you not started, completed, completed.
What would it be if you've started but you haven't completed?
Not completed.
Okay.
It will be not completed. But if you attempt, an example is you attempt an online assessment, but you failed. You completed it. You didn't pass it. Okay. But if you pass it, you also complete it. I can see something else. The document. Here's the document. Okay, not downloaded and downloaded. Progress status completed. Okay, it also has a default status when you open the pathway. As a learner, I open the pathway, that's my status. But to show something else. See here statuses. Not the document step. And this is where I believe you can edit the detail actually. Okay, an image. That is the image that shows on the pathway when you complete it. Okay. When you obtain that status, okay, that is basically the old image. It was very bold, a bold tick mark. Okay, so you are able to edit. So clients can go and configure this. We ship with the default that most clients use. Okay, so you can select a different icon. Okay, if action is required and an action is required, there's also a color that displays. Okay, that's PW step type configuration. Step status, PW step type configuration, step type status configuration. The status configuration is this page that you've seen. Okay, what the icon and so on, the name, the progress level, not started, in progress, or completed. So a client can decide to download it or complete it in an online assessment. Doesn't actually mean complete or failed is not completed. They can decide that. Okay. Then there's speed of the step type status inclusions. I'll just select that. What does this table do? How do you know?
Yeah, it's basically you can basically bunch a few statuses together. That means basically the same as a different status type.
Yeah.
I'm not really good at explaining.
Yeah, but you're 100% correct. Okay. Here are the library tables that we spoke about. Catalogs, question mark pathway assessment, PW acceptances, Adobe Connect, assessments, assignments, certification points, connectors. So this is the different step types that you see when you click on the plus on the edit view. And they are the step type, item ID, in PW steps. Development status is a property on the pathway itself. Step due dates. PW step due dates. Let's just select from that table. Sorry. I haven't seen this step recently. It's linked to a clause. But do you know perhaps what this table is used for? It is a
Well,
new table.
the step due dates, that was also for the classroom stuff that we did. So on each step you can add a due date, and then it will show on the bubbles or on the tabs. It will show you, like, if you reach a certain time or you have missed your deadline, a due date, then it will show a little triangle on the step bubble or the tab, but nobody uses it. So
it's actually maybe for the non-linear learning. If you have a due date on a step, and that specific step must be completed by, let's say, 1 October or 1 December.
yes, that's right.
Okay. All right. Now the node classes are actually the subgroups linked to a node. And those subgroups will be classes of employees that are attending the pathway course. Okay. Node class employees is the employees that are in that subgroup. Those employees, all know what that table is for. Additional resources has to do with the, remember with the additional resources on each of the steps of documents. Okay, so actually the documents that are linked to the pathways. Inside the tables, reusability of the document packages was also done. So if you have a package of 3 documents and you reuse the same 3 documents in another pathway, they form part actually of the same package, so to say. So there are unique additional resource packages. Okay. Any questions on the table structure?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So the step user controls, we'll go into the code. But just to give a quick overview, so the pathway controller has a step method. The step method is it when you click or open up a step in a pathway. So the step controller, I'm just going to show that in the code. This is the step method. It returns a pathway index view and the pathway home view model. But the pathway home view model contains information about that specific step. Okay. But we'll hit this breakpoint in a moment. We do the following. Going to log in. Just while that is busy loading. So if you hit a pathway for the first time, you initialize the pathway. So that is what this flag is for. You actually initialize the pathway, and if a learner record was done in the meantime that influences your pathway, that is then taken into account and the step status is updated. So for a practical assessment step, for instance, where you don't earn the learner record on the pathway itself, but it is loaded externally by an external assessor, that the initialization goes and marks that step as completed because of the path of the learner record that was uploaded between 4 o'clock yesterday and 8 o'clock this morning when you open the pathway again. So the status for that practical assessment needs to be updated. Okay. Let's log in as party. Just add a breakpoint. So okay, let's go to the learning portal. I haven't recorded my styles yet. That is this e-learning programs. Okay, let's do Hertz tester. There's an online assessment. So now if I land on the step, just going to zoom in for my own sake. So this is the view model that is now returned to that specific step. Just going into it. Okay, first gets a session variable, the login employee. So when you redirect away from a pathway, you need to set the point where you need to redirect back again. For instance, SCORM redirects completely away from the pathway. So you need to tell SCORM where to come back to when you're done. So it's stored in this session. Okay. Is it a step? It is a step. Okay. The pathway back controls are initialized over here. And this is the properties from the pathway. Remember, it returns pathway details, this view model, and it returns step details. It returns a lot of information. Okay, so this is the I think this is well, some of it are step details and some are pathway details. It's the employee number. So now the pathway is set up, but it's not set up completely. There's still a lot of items to be set. This is the employee, LMA source. Not 100% sure what that is, but this is the pathway node detail. Back to pathway, so just a few pathway node properties have been set at this point. So we still have to set some step properties. For initializing, this is the first step that we're going into. So the user entry is logged Okay, remember pathway employee node logs. Display setting. What is that display setting used for? How do you know out of your fist? The setting just says show.
I can't remember it right now.
But we'll see that now. So the pathway step information, gonna go over this and then view what it actually does. Okay, this is the step. So it's an assessment. One important thing I wanted to see here is to see if it's over here. Is a partial, is a property that it says that indicates which partial it's going to use. Okay, but it's still going. That is in a following step, it seems. Okay.
I think it uses the step type. Then on the view, it will decide which
Yeah.
partial to load according to the step type.
All right. What you also see is there's an indicator that says is from app or not. There's certain details that are hidden when you open an online step from the mobile app. So, for instance, the edit mode and the learner mode is hidden. That's right, Gert?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's too involved to display on the app as well on your display. Okay. But the app is not necessarily to go and edit the pathway. You do that on the desktop. If it's not from an app, then it's a group step. Okay. This is the active schema. Hit pathway step. This is actually where you select, this is now for the online assessment where you select the step detail and progress for the employee. This is the assessment step view model. It fetches the assessment. If the assessment doesn't exist anymore, so that's just for robustness. The opening assessment, it doesn't exist anymore, maybe from the app side. Shows a warning message. You get the assessment intro. And then there's a lot of online assessment properties that are now selected. If you go to the assessment builder library, these are the properties you would see. Okay, so if you're starting the attempt, creating a new attempt, the attempt date and time. If you have an attempt, it selects the last attempt details. Okay, if the assessment step logs a learner record, should log a learner record. Correct, this is done. If you have a learner record already. Yeah, if you have a learner record already, then it selects the learner record detail and fetches your score from the learner record. It's the attempt date time. It's the learner record date time. Okay, so you'll see there's a lot of interaction between learner records and pathway steps. Okay, so the training record, start and end date makes a difference. If you haven't attempted the assessment yet, but you have the learner record for it, then your assessment start and end date will actually be the start and end date of the learner record. that already exists. Somebody loaded that learner record for you to give you a recognition of prior learning, so it may be imported for you. Okay. Okay. The progress is not completed. The footer message and the spatial score. And the back button is hidden. Okay, you first have to complete the assessment. Yeah, that's the fourth way step. Then the next step actually gets your progress indicator for that specific step. Okay, it does a sum there, so it actually goes and determines your percentage of this pathway. There's the node name. Is it not from app? And this is also actions that are done not on a mobile app. If you, I think this displays the class name that you're in. Okay, if there's a step, determines whether you have additional resources. If you have additional resources, which this pathway does not have, then the additional resources are not initialized. Okay. You must stop me, Gert, at any time if I'm speaking nonsense. I think from all of us in the session, you know this code about the best.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually 100% sure of that. This is where you select prerequisites. So just remember, we're still selecting a part of the view model, and the part that we're selecting is the pathway step. The step has prerequisites. So this is one of the biggest view models that is returned in the system. So we're selecting the prerequisites. The link user URL. Okay. This is other employees who've done the step. If this pathway has due dates, the step has due dates. This is not a class step. So we're getting the step due date items. And we're getting, for those of you who've seen the pathway, there's a part that you can rate. Getting the rating as well. And if you'll see the first and the last step of the pathway, the first step is called introduction. The last page is called the conclusion. It shows a list of all the steps. Okay, so they are treated like a step. So if the current page is introduction and there's no progress and you're in edit mode, yeah, it means you're in edit mode. So it actually sets the pathway in test mode. You remember the flag to true. So the step type configurations that we've shown. If you are in edit mode, you can select the toolbox items. Favorite, the visual platform types are the integrations to Teams and Zoom. So it selects detail based on that. That is going to determine whether that start virtual meeting displays on top of the pathway. Is it enabled? It is enabled. Okay, so here you have that is your step progress. That is actually your pathway view model. Let's just look at it and appreciate it for a moment. you'll see there's the partial path. Very important because that is the location where the partial view is stored. You'll see that now. So every step type has a partial view associated to it. Okay, so the index view is returned with that partial, with that path a home view model. Okay. Let's just go to the index view. I have it here. I've closed it. Come see this. Okay, let's go to the views. This the controllers. Views, pathways. Here are the pathway steps. So yes, partial view for each of the steps. That's the assessment which actually reads from another partial view. Let's go to the acceptance. Okay, so the acceptance step as an input acceptance step view model. Okay, which will be passed in the index view. So let's go to the index view. So this is an invoice page. There's a breakpoint over here. Okay. Okay, the right one. Always index.html. Yeah, let's continue. Okay. So there's obviously a lot happening on this one view. There's audio variables initialized on top for the introduction, for the pathway step, for the conclusion step. The tab display, so that is the mode that says either display the indicators or the tab view mode. Is the toolbox enable? Should we hide a class step? Does this pathway have a class step and classes? Is there a virtual platform? Is virtual platforms enabled for the schema? Then we display on top start virtual meeting. Okay, do we have a rating? And there's also a nonce that is stored in the session for this employee. Okay. Let's go past these statements. Okay, again, hidden filter are used on the page. So there is settings that are returned here, then know the step, the linked users URL. So these are just basically variables that are used probably on the client side. Then if there's a few parts here to this index view, if the model, if the pathways open not from the app, there's this whole navigation on top. So you remember the navigate buttons is not shown if it's from the app, only the step shows. So you don't have the green or the red button that is actually coded in on the app itself, right, Gert? The app itself has indicators on the app for each of the steps. Okay, let's carry on. It's not external view mode. which is also the app, or sending a link to a user, sharing the pathway. Okay, external view mode. Do not close this window. Okay, so this basically selects the conclusion or introduction. Okay. So is our introduction is null, conclusion is null. So it just means that the step is not the introduction or conclusion step. It gives you a refresh URL. Oh, what's that refresh URL? It's on top of the step. On top of the step, you have a button that says refresh. The little circle key. Okay. The pathway step is not null. What is the node step count? There's only one step inside the pathway, remember, just a pathway, not just a online assessment. Count is 1. Okay. So if the pathway step is not null, and pathway steps, what is that used for, Gert? Pathway step count is greater than 5.
Sorry, Theuns, I'm not paying attention. I'm looking at the upgrade query right now. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. No worries. So if there's not a pathway step and a pathway has more than 5 steps, or the conclusion is not null. All right. But then there's let me just see. If it is a conclusion step, obviously then it displays the conclusion. That's what it looks. Yeah. Yeah. It displays all of the steps in the conclusion. If there are more than 5 steps, that's interesting. I don't know. It just displayed it if it has more than 5 steps. Okay, then there's start virtual meeting button at the top. If the virtual platforms has been enabled. Remember, we're still looking at if you have access to the edit view and you're not coming from the mobile app, you can display the toolbar if the introduction is null. But this isn't the introduction step. Okay, there's some information displayed on the classes. Okay, if it is a favorite, the favorite is marked. There's the refresh button. There's a generic link, generic sharing link. Okay, this is the introduction. It's an introduction step. Remember this view handles all of the steps, the introductions and the conclusion. So that's logic that tests if it's a step, it's a conclusion, is it an introduction? Okay, this is one of the most important steps. So the partial is loaded based on the pathway steps. So in this case, if you look at the partial path here, it's an assessment partial that is shown, that is displayed. So the pathway step model is passed into the partial every time. Okay. And that pathway step, remember, can be different types now. Can be an acceptance, can be an assessment. So, but that is handled on the side of the assessment online step or the acceptance online step. Okay. That just basically gives the portal the information needed to display what is your progress, what is the link that you need to click on that opens the step on the online assessment.
Yeah, sorry, could you maybe just hover over the model.partial path there on 333? I just want to view that again. I missed.
Pathway steps?
Yes, that would where you are now.
Yeah, underscore assessment.
Okay, so there is a physical file.
There's a physical file you're reading.
Underscore assessment. Okay.
Pathway steps, underscore assessment. Okay. Makes sense.
Thanks.
Yeah, that is one of the intricacies of this design, is that specific step where it displays a specific step type. Okay, we don't want one partial that actually displays all of the step types conditionally. It would be difficult to maintain. Okay. This then handles the tab display, if it's a tab display. So the partial loads there. If it's a tab display, obviously it will display the different tabs on top, of which one of them are the class. Okay. Press F10. Okay, this is the toolbox toggle. And this is the pathway toolbox. Okay, obviously, if the introduction is null, we're not displaying the introduction. Okay, just want to check this. Edit it. It's not in edit mode, and you can edit it in the session menu code equals null. If I remember correctly, this is used for pathway sharing. When you physically open up the course from outside of not even logging in. Okay, so there's the active clause ID. Okay, so you must have a way to launch this URL or this pathway. That is what the URL is used for. Toggle edit mode. But this is actually the edit. Yeah, sorry, this is the edit mode. Underlying mode. Okay, so we're still on top. The pathway haven't even went below the edit mode yet. Okay, use the introduction is equal to null. Okay, so you're able to switch between classes. Also an admin functionality. Able generic, so this is actually the link sharing. This is the tab display. Yeah, this is where we were. Releasing the state progresses, there's only one. So at the top of the pathway, you would see of a pathway, you would see the progress of all your other steps as well. This has only one step, so it only shows the progress of the one step. So when you're in the pathway, it will show you green, green, orange, red, yellow, green. So it must load that as well. Where are we now? Line. Okay. The number color, so you'll remember it's, what is it? It's the green background, number background color. Okay. I don't know what color that is. So that is actually, so you'll see there's a lot of properties involved just getting the page to display the way it displays. So not exactly where that background or where that number is. Display setting not show. So if that display setting is shown, I think that determines whether you must show or hide a step. In this case, the step is visible. Both the step is not null. The grouping step. Remember the grouping steps, we have more than one step. Okay. This is step number. The step number is 1. I didn't know where that displays in the drop down, but I think it also displays in that bubble what the step number is. The due date indicator. Okay. Is for the conclusion. So that this basically takes this display that checkered flag at the end. At the top, you have the same for the conclusion. The same for the conclusion. The chevron. Then you have this, yeah, steps, and then you have the conclusion. Okay. I think I'm going to leave that there for now. I think we should continue next time with this. What do you think?
Sounds good. That's good.
Yeah, it's been an hour. Then we'll spend more time than is necessary now today. Okay. Good. Any questions from the cloud?
Done, thank you.
Nope. Thanks.
All right. Yeah, I warned you it's going to be an involved session. But yes, we'll continue next time with this. All right. Any questions here? Harvey, get on.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Cool. Thank you, guys.
So.
Thanks, Theuns.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.